What is up, everybody? It's Snow from Mercs.com, filling in for Divine, and the topic at hand is short-term investing for this Mercs class. This just so happens to work out because short-term investing is pretty much all I do in Runescape these days, so I'm absolutely delighted to talk about it. I also feel like this is kind of one of the more beneficial parts to Mercs.com, yet also the most underutilized, so I'm also pretty happy to talk about it even more so hopefully more people can take advantage of this stuff. So anyway, I'm just going to hop right on into it and discuss both like the fundamentals and then just show you the practicality of doing it. And I have a short-term investment I did not too long ago, so I'm just going to kind of include that in this video as well. So getting right to it, the easiest thing you can do if you're been a VIP for more than 1 month is you'll have access to tier 2 investment suggestions. I would just click on that. That takes you to a page like this, and then you just hold down control and you click, open up new tabs, and then that's what I've done here, and I'm about to go through them. Otherwise, if you're just a VIP member, then I would just go through the items, pretty much the same process. Click all the way through. It just is quicker if you're tier 2, you can go here, but you can really see this in all of the charts. So anyways, with my mass clicking, we've got the rune arrow was the first one. Looking at it, it's clear, okay, yeah, it is just overall down, and it's probably going to bounce back up, but it's got a 10K limit, and just as an aside, whenever I short-term invest, usually what I do is instant buy and then throw in the sell. So what my goal to do is find an item that's cheap enough where I can buy for the high, and then so I'll instant buy a bunch, throw it in for what I think will be the sell. Like for example here, the sell would obviously be 204 because it keeps hitting 204. Throw it in for what I think will be the sell and just log off, or do whatever you want to do, but I just log off. So in this case, we've got a 201 that would be an instant buy, and then we would be able to sell for 204, so 3 GP difference. And at 10K, that's only 30K. Honestly, not worth the time. If you're going to sit there, though, and like this was maybe the first thing, you could try for a low of 195 while you're doing the rest of your stuff, and then maybe try and sell for 204. But for the most part, not worth the energy, I don't think, for rune arrows. Continuing along, raw rocktail. This one looks pretty good. You can see it's been a nice stable, and then it kind of drops down like this. As long as there's no, like news reason for that, like it happened here. You can see it drop down. It comes right back up every time. Same thing here. It dropped down. It came almost right back up to where it started from. So it's always a good idea when you see this kind of stuff to go ahead and buy in. But anyway, yeah, here, I mean, geez, 1721. The limit's 20K. And you're looking to sell maybe for 1772. Now that's a little bit better. You've got a 20,000 limit, that 50 margin, that gives you 1 mil for that flip. So obviously that might be worth your time. Coming over to Grenwall spikes, 5K is the limit here, and again, this is a beautiful one where the high is way down there. And what else we can do is we'll just zoom back and see, okay, well, what are we dealing with as far as like the past is concerned. And at this price, with this low that's like basically on this line, you can just trace it back here where it hit that low here, hit it here, here. It's just unlikely for Grenwall spikes to stay below 1,000 GP each. It just isn't happening. I mean, it could, like as you can see, this is kind of slowly downtrending, so you wouldn't want to take a huge risk in this, but chances are this is going to bounce back up for us. So Grenwall spikes would be good, and then also you just want to see, like, okay, it came down to about 1,000, just under 1,000 is the called prices, I believe, here. Yeah. And it'll probably bounce back up to more like 1,300 or something like that, but that's still 300 times 5,000. So it's a decent investment there. Moving right along, Steel Titan pouch. This is one that I would actually not suggest you invest in. Obviously, looking at just this data right here, you're like, okay, this has been a very, very stable, about 3,400-ish as a low, and then boom, it's fallen down to 32, 36. I should buy. There's a 5,000 limit, looking good. But when you go look at the past, you can see that, well, it's actually been about that price in the past, and it just recently shot up a bunch, and I guess it's just because of that new ranged update or something like that. But overall, I would say this is actually kind of a risky one. Chances are it's going to bounce back up, but I would not want to buy in for the high of 33.84. So it's not really worth it in my opinion. Plus pouches are generally pretty slow. So I would kind of leave that one behind. Monkfish. Monkfish are just historically really, really volatile items. Kind of like cannonballs used to be. As you can see, I mean, there's just so much what's called whipsawing, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in price. So they're generally a really good one and a really fast flip. And so here's another example where you can see it just bounces all over the place. And here you've got a high of, what looks to be about 294, and then that you could instantly buy for at the moment. And chances are it's going to bounce back up to probably this blue line's value of 325. So 294 to 325, looking at a good profit there, and it's a really fast flip. So yeah, it's like 300k or so profit, but at the rate that monkfish are flipped at, really good. And this is kind of another good thing to just take a peek at, where this will kind of is what's happening right now. It drops down. It might bounce. It might bounce around a little bit for a while, but it just almost always will return back to where it was. Magic Seed, this was a suggestion, but it doesn't really look good now, but this would have been a great time, obviously, where it's just anytime you see where it's been like fairly level, this has even been a subtle decline, and it does continue that subtle decline. Like if you drew a trend line, I mean, it's clearly continuing, so you don't want to like buy in here and expect to sell for this max value here at like 169. Like you don't expect to buy in here for 140k and sell for 170k, but instead you buy at 140k and fairly confidently know you're going to sell for 160k, right? So that's kind of the goal, as long as it's downtrending like this. But pretty much every item in RuneScape is downtrending besides like party hats or something like that. So anyway, and then generally like the reason it fell is because someone sold a bulk and it just got oversold, and there's almost always going to be a correction on the oversell, but sometimes it won't. If there was a big sale, then it should fall, but just not as much as it did because someone sold so much in a short time period. So this is just kind of an example of me short-term investing in Furies. This was the graph at the time. As you can see, it kind of just dropped down at the end there. So I pegged it as a good short-term investment, plus you can put a lot of money into Furies, so I thought it would be okay. So anyway, I'm just offering kind of like basically what the high was at the time. As you can see, I instant bought a few of them, and so then at that point, after you buy a bunch, I just kind of logged out, and then kind of as time kind of passed by, I made a few more offers before the night. And then by morning, a little bit after I woke up that morning, pretty much all my buys had filled. So then I just collected all of the buys, and you can see that here, and we can do the math at the end of all of this. And then once I got done collecting them, then it's just, you sell them. So I ended up with about 412 Furies there, and then selling the same thing. You're going to sell it for a price that's a little bit less than what you expected the price to be, but in this case the price had jumped pretty high on me, so all I had to do was actually undercut the price. It made it pretty easy to do that. So here the mid was actually just above 3400k, and I dropped it below. I paid about 3380k for these, and then they had jumped up to 3400k because of kind of an overbuy based on me, but also they had been oversold, and that made it easy for me to get a bunch, wait for them to rise, and then throw them in for a price that was under the price at the time, and be able to actually instant sell some of them as well. So anyway, then after I did that, you can see I sold most of them for just under 3400k, and pretty much already making about 7 mil profit. If I was to break even on all the other ones, which probably would be the case since I sold so many at 3400k. So the next thing I did was take the rest of them, sell them for just under 3390k, and kind of just left. And then I come back, and sure enough, they're finally all sold, and I've completed everything. And so what I do here is just collect them both, and then we can take pretty screenshots, and I can show it to you guys that how we did it. So in summary, short-term investing, at least in my opinion, goes this way. First, you want to look for an item that shows signs of being oversold and is likely to bounce. So you're looking for something that looks like someone just dumped a really large amount. And then when they do that, what ends up happening is the market corrects itself and will rise right back up once that person sells that bulk. You want to look for an item that has a history that's either been pretty stable and level in the last day or so, or is maybe even rising in price. But I would also avoid items that just recently rose substantially. Volatile items are great, but if you're buying into the high, expecting it to go even higher, you're taking on a little bit of extra risk. So it's not really worth it, especially when you can just look for another item and avoid that risk. When you find the item that you want to buy, I recommend you just go ahead and buy for the high price. Sometimes this is the reason why I don't buy into the item, because the current high price and like the overall high price that I think I could sell for isn't enough, and the limit doesn't make it enough to be worth the time and effort. Now, the reason I buy for the high price, I mean, I won't do it if the margin is huge or something and the item's a pretty high volume item, but the reason I buy for the high price is, one, the item's likely to bounce. So when you buy for the low price, you end up having to wait. Well, time is kind of against you right now. It's a short-term investment. And generally, these tend to take maybe 30 minutes on average. Now, you could do something like my Fury short-term investment, where obviously that was like more like a 12-hour, 14-hour investment. But for the most part, most of these items are going to be flipped within like 30 minutes, sometimes even less. So if you're buying for the low, chances are you won't even get a limit until the price starts going up again. I mean, that's what you're buying, expecting that price to go up pretty quickly. So that's why I buy for the high, is because then you'll actually get a good amount. And it's good. And a lot of times you'll see where the items crash so much, and then the high and the low are like really, really close to each other. So it just seems really foolish, for an extra like 0.05% to buy for the high. But yeah, sometimes the margins are huge. But anyway, also if you buy for the high, it saves you a lot of time and energy, and really buying for the low, at least in my opinion and my experience, doesn't really give you any greater reward usually. But also, if you buy for the high, it kind of helps the item get boosted back to where you're expecting it to go, and actually speeds up the entire process. So it actually kind of helps. And with that, since you're buying for the high price, once you have the item, you usually just like instantly throw it right back in that you got. And the way I choose the price is usually just kind of like I choose something that was lower than the previous high that we've been seeing. So this is something that's pretty subjective. There's no formula or anything like that. You just kind of look for a price that it looks like if it wasn't for this most recent drop, this would be kind of an area that I definitely think it's going to hit. So that's the price. So with that, I'll leave with just one last example, and that's with the newly added Drygore items. We literally just added them yesterday, but I've been having a good time with them. With these, you can also do short-term investing, and you can do instant buys, and a lot of times just throw them in for the sell, log out, come back, and if you did the full set of Drygore items, you just made anything from like 6 to 12 mil, because their margins are pretty darn good. So with these, what I tend to do is look for, they basically, since the FC reports even mils, right? So if someone says they bought something for 75.8 mil, that's reported as a 76 mil buy, right? They don't do decimals. So what I end up doing when I merchant these is I look for the notches up and down. So like if it's been level and then just recently notched up, then I'm not going to instant buy it. I'm going to buy for the low and then hopefully sell for the high. But if it just recently notched down, right, in mills, then I'm willing to instant buy that and then throw it in for the the highest high that's been for like the last hour or so. Now, obviously, just like any short-term investment, you only want to do this if there's no good reason for that item to fall. If there's an update coming along, and you're not, fully read up on that update, maybe don't do that. Maybe not do the instant buying and stuff in short-term investing in like a big item like these. But otherwise, these are also, the Drygors are just a great item for short-term investing, flipping, whatever. So if you haven't seen the Drygor items yet, definitely go check them out. So anyways, that's it. Hopefully I helped you out with short-term investing. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Both me and Divine will respond to the comments. So if you have any questions, just feel free to post them. If you like the video, please like it. If you haven't subscribed, also please do subscribe. We come out with videos fairly often. If you have not yet, check out mercs.com. We do offer free trials, so you can definitely check that out and at least make some money on Drygor items, if nothing else. And stay tuned for more classes, and until next time.